Like most first time parents, my husband Danny and I were excited but nervous. We played through and planned for all the possible scenarios of having our first baby, from his name to the delivery to the first outfit he would wear. A month from my due date, we had just moved into our new house, had our go bags ready, and had the car seat in my car. We felt we were as prepared as we could be for the inevitable arrival of our first child. The last thing we expected to plan for was a worldwide pandemic that would shut the world down just days before I gave birth. On March 13th, 2020, I was enjoying the last few days of my spring break before I had to get back to school. We were at the dealership picking up my new car when I received an email from my district about extending spring break for one more week. At the time, there had been whispers of COVID 19, but it was happening on other continents and in other states. And as an extremely pregnant woman, I was elated. I couldn't believe my good luck in getting an extra week off to continue to prepare for the arrival of our little one and to continue to get some much needed rest. Little did we know that what was supposed to be some little virus from China would turn into a worldwide pandemic that would go beyond anything we had ever planned for us or the delivery. I had always envisioned my mom and husband being with me during the birth and our other family members visiting right after. But as a week-long spring break turned into several weeks, we started to hear reports of hospitals changing their policies for the labor and delivery unit and visitors. I was still going to my weekly maternity appointments and decided to ask my doctor about the changes. After much hesitating and with a disappointed look that could be seen through her new face mask, she informed me that only one visitor would be allowed during the entirety of our hospital stay, and that yes, even though he is my husband and the father of my child, Danny would still count as a visitor, my only one. My whole world was rocked. How was I going to get through this without the help and support of our family? I began to rethink every plan we had made for the arrival of our first child. Just 13 short days after the world started to shut down, I went into labor. After a long induction due to a last-minute diagnosis of preeclampsia, it was finally time for John Daniel to make his appearance. While the birth of our first child should have been the best day of my life, it was instead one of the scariest. Instead of being surrounded by family, I was surrounded with questions about our travel habits, whether we had recently left the country, if we had recently been around anyone with COVID like symptoms, and so on. I was required to wear a mask even though my unborn baby and I were having severe health complications and I was struggling with breathing. I felt like I had no control over what was happening and that nothing could have prepared us for the experience. After John Daniel was born and all the health complications were handled, I spent my first few days of motherhood in almost pure isolation, save for my husband and the hospital staff. While we were able to FaceTime friends and family, it was not the same as having them physically with us in the hospital to celebrate the arrival of our first child. While we could not see our family's faces in person, we also could not see the faces of the hospital staff responsible for caring for our newborn son. Not knowing what the person caring for our infant looked like was scary, especially since the idea and concept of wearing face masks was just beginning. At the time, people knew almost nothing about the new virus, how contagious it was, or how it could potentially affect a newborn baby. Once we were discharged from the hospital and made it home safely, my husband returned to Fire Academy, having only taken off 4 days for the arrival of our son. Even though it was during the height of COVID, he was not allowed to miss class. Because of my husband's school and the nationwide lockdown, I was almost always alone as a brand new mom. We did not go anywhere as a family for months. Besides visiting my mom's house and the doctor's office, I stayed home with my new baby until mid-July, 4 months later, to get groceries and to prepare for my return to school and John Daniel's first days in daycare. During this time, I had friends drop presents at our front door, but did not physically see them or get to share my son with them in person. Our only friend who saw John Daniel in person those first several months was only there to take his newborn photos at our home, staying true to what would become commonplace for pandemic babies in the future. I was ecstatic to have what seemed like all the time in the world to spend with my son, but I was disappointed that I could not share the happiness and love with our friends and family. While I wish I could have shared John Daniel with our family and friends during those first few months, I appreciate that my husband and I got to bond with him all on our own before sharing him with others. Because of this forced isolation, I could be present for several of John Daniel's firsts. Now, John Daniel is a happy and healthy 3-year-old who will never remember the pandemic or the struggles that he lived through during his first years of life. As much as it was lonely and terrifying at times, I always look back at the first 5 months of my son's life, thankful that I got to be at home with him every day. Going through the pandemic as a new mother made me stronger than I could have ever imagined and prepared me to expect the unexpected.